Hi, I'm Harut Markarian, and this is Mobility and Inclusion, the show where we share the powerful stories of people with disabilities and daring entrepreneurs making waves in our world. From technological innovations to best practices in business, we'll learn what it really means to live in an inclusive and universally designed environment. Hello and welcome. I am Harut Markarian. This is Mobility and Inclusion, and our guest today is Zach Herbert. Zach is a lawyer, former Marine officer, and a fellow Pepperdine two-time graduate. We'll come back to the two-time. He is a partner at the Dallas personal injury law firm of Herbert and Eberstein. Zach's practice entails helping injured victims navigate the complicated legal process of insurance compensation. Over the years, Zach has helped countless people with injuries ranging from smaller aches and pains all the way up to catastrophic, life-changing injuries. Zach uses technology to help communicate to a wide range of clientele, including the deaf. Zach, welcome to the show, my friend.
Great to be here. Thanks for the intro. I appreciate that. That was a very well written intro. I think you did me justice.
Oh man, if only I can do better. How's it going, man? How has business been for you for the start of 2021?
Start of 2021 has been actually pretty good. The pandemic last year got us all real scared, and I know a lot of people circled the wagons. I think we made some decisions in my business that were pretty good now, looking back on it, and starting off 2021 strong. About into this quarter coming up, and I think we're gonna put up some good numbers. We're all gonna hit our goals so far for this year, so I've got high hopes for the rest of the year.
That's great, man. That's great. There was there a big transition between the pandemic area and I don't know if we can say post-pandemic area now. I don't know if we are
right.
in a post-pandemic area, but
are we post-pandemic? I don't know.
How has that transition been between 2020 and 2021? Was there a big difference there?
Well, I guess yes, there is. I live in Texas, and I know that we've made the news a couple of times so far in 2021. And I can sum it up by saying, Texans just don't want to be told what to do. Okay, that's kind of the way Texans are. And so at first last year, when this all started and there was a lockdown, nobody was driving, nobody was on the roads. And if nobody's on the roads, there's no accidents. If there's no accidents, then nobody calls a car wreck attorney like myself. So we thought a lot of bad things were going to happen to us, and then people started wearing masks. They started figuring out how the new normal worked for them, and I think that everybody started driving again. At least in Texas, it's kind of like Los Angeles. Everybody drives. Yeah. There's no. I mean, we were faintly aware of some public transportation, but nobody actually uses it, right?
Well, we have public transportation here as well. I've never used it.
I know exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you've seen it. It exists.
Yeah,
there's advertising on the side of it.
No, it's great to hear that things are picking back up again. You are a fellow. So let's talk about that two-time Pepperdine graduate. Is it like you failed the first time, came back the second time to succeed, or how did that two-time work?
I gotta tell you, man. I first went to law school after college, and I went to Pepperdine. I went to Pepperdine because they accepted me. That's really why I went to Pepperdine. I didn't know anything about California. I had never been to California before. I had never seen the Pacific Ocean. I didn't realize it was cold. I'd only ever seen the Galveston Atlantic side of things, where the water is actually warm. So that was one of the first things I had to learn. But I applied to a lot of law schools, and Pepperdine accepted me and sent me a postcard. And it was just a picture of the campus, and it said, "Wish you were here." And I was like, sold, I'm going. I'm going to move.
They buttered you up, huh?
They did. That's all they had to do. And so I moved, and I started law school. I didn't know anybody. I was newly married, and my wife and I just kind of figured it out. And we figured out that we loved Pepperdine, the school. She worked at Pepperdine while I went to law school there.
Nice.
And then when the market fell in 2008, there were no jobs for attorneys unless you wanted to go into the military. And so I went into the Marine Corps because that was the hardest branch she could possibly have gone into, because I just like to do things the hard way, I guess. And I did 4 years in the Marines, and I said, I'm never going back to school. I will never go back to school. I've had enough school. 3 years was enough. No way. And then I started my own business after I'd been practicing for a while, and realized that I could read a lot of books, or I could use the GI Bill and go back to school, and called Pepperdine, and they said, sure, come on. And they started a cohort, and you were in it, Harut, and we did 19 months of classes, and we all got our degree the nick of time, I feel like, right before the pandemic,
I know.
right before Hong Kong had protests, right before all these things happened.
We were pretty lucky bunch.
I'd say, and I hadn't flown until this past weekend. I hadn't flown since 2019. That was the last time I flew. I had so many miles, but this past weekend we did a quick getaway, and I used some of my Southwest miles. It's still
That's
weird.
Great to hear, man.
It's still weird to
I
fly.
haven't flown yet,
Yeah.
So you
haven't flown yet?
Nope.
Ugh.
No.
I have COVID now because I did that. I'm just, I'm no, I'm kidding.
Put a mask on, please.
Sure. Yeah, I got one around here somewhere. Here you go. Here, I'll protect you for the rest of this interview. Okay.
No, please take that off. Anyway, let's talk about how the MBA kind of like what changed in you that drove a change in how you do business.
A lot, honestly. I was able to, so I started my law firm in October of 2017. We started classes in May of 2018. And so I had only been running the place for 6-7 months. And, I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, they don't teach you anything in law school, even like the just basic things like a trust account and where to go to open up a business account. I mean, from the beginning of the beginnings, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. And so while I was in the MBA program, I used that to bounce ideas off of my classmates like you. I took a lot of the things we learned in the different subjects, and I applied them directly to my business. Things like the leadership class that we took, things like the quantitative analysis class that we took. I learned a lot in that one to use the numbers to my advantage, to forecasting, to figure out, am I spending my time in the right places, that sort of thing. And my business grew. I had no employees when I started the MBA, and then now there are 8 people that work here now. So it's pretty crazy. And I assume that this year we're going to grow by a few more, because we already have a couple of new positions that we're thinking of creating for this year, as well as we got more room. We're moving next month into a bigger office space. And I'm just kind of excited about that, because where I'm at right now, the blinds are brown, and if you have brown blinds, you're not in a good place. It's not high level. You gotta have white blinds behind you. And then then I'll be cool. Then I'll be I'll invade it.
It's great to hear. It's definitely very exciting time for you. I'm glad I'm hearing all of the positive growth that you're experiencing. How was the partnership? Talk to us about the partnership. How did that come to exist?
So the partnership. So in July of last year, I partnered with my old boss. Actually, he was on his own. He is significantly older than me. I won't say how much older, but he's a lot older than I am. He had retired, and then he decided he was bored and didn't really want to retire anymore, and started taking on cases again. And the thing about what I do is, you can advertise all you want, and you see it where you're from, whoever's listening, and you too, Harut, you see it at billboards, you hear it on the radio, always a personal injury attorney, right? There's plenty of them to choose from. But word of mouth is probably the most the best way to get clients, because then that's the most, I think, clients, nobody's going to just call the guy off the billboard without at least asking somebody first, hey, did you hire an attorney? Do you know the guy? And so when you've been around a long time, like my partner Brian has, the word of mouth is, if there's a word of mouth quotient, his is lots higher than my word of mouth quotient is. And so he just was getting cases without doing much advertising. The pandemic hit, I wasn't getting any cases. He had a lot of cases, but he had no staff. I'm the nerd with all of the processes ready to go. He's got the rainmaking clout. So it was a very good partnership. I mean, we each brought to the table, I think, what the other one was lacking. And so far it has worked out. Since adding his cases and him and one of his employees, we've continued to grow. And it's been probably the best decision I made in 2020.
That's great, man. That sounds like a great partnership indeed. You call yourself modern attorneys. What do you mean by that? And how do you differentiate yourself from other lawyers in general, and other law firms in particular?
Sure. I think that's part of the partnership of what we both bring to the table. Brian is self-described as old school, and which can mean many different things in different contexts, but it's old school in the fact that he prefers to meet the clients face to face. He wants to talk to them. He wants to get to know them. That one-on-one client-lawyer relationship that honestly just doesn't really exist anymore. When you hire an attorney, hardly ever talk to the attorney or see the attorney. And me, I am a complete, I guess geek is probably a better term than nerd. I'm more of a geek because I love technology. I like the new shiny tech, gadgets. And I also like to implement automations in my law firm. So if I can automate it, then I'm going to build it. And so that we don't have to actually click that button again. It's just done automatically for us. And I found out that there was a lot of automations I could do and to streamline my services that I'm bringing to my clients, which makes me a lot more efficient. And that's a big asset to bring to this space, because lawyers, and I'm just going to throw us all into one boat, lawyers are not good at adapting to new things. We are fairly set in our ways, and we're not necessarily the most pliable individuals. We like what we like. There's still lawyers that use paper, and I'm completely paperless in my law firm. And so there's a big that's a big part of what we do. We're the modern attorney. It's kind of a relative term compared to most attorneys. We're incredibly modern. We're cutting edge compared to Apple or Google. We're probably not so modern. We're probably back in the 2000s.
No, but I love.
But as far as
I love how you're implementing the technology and using it to using it in your practice to the most efficient way possible. That's great to hear, actually. And it sounds like his older ways and your modern technique is, like, as we said, it's a great partnership, and it's great efficiency to carry on the business to the next level.
And what's interesting about that is too, I've started to give clients the option, when I say, hey, you can either come in or we can meet, or we could do this electronically if you prefer. And it's interesting who chooses to do it just electronically and who wants to meet. You would think it's all the young people that want to do it electronically, but that's not necessarily the case. The pandemic, of course, changed this, the data.
Yeah.
But before the pandemic, I was always giving people that opportunity, and it was interesting. Some younger people would insist on meeting. No, I want to come to your office. I want to meet you. I threw the lawyers into one group, but you can't do that with the younger generation. You can't throw them all into one group and say they all want to do it electronically. It's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I would be one of those ones who want to come to your office and meet you.
There you go. And you're, are you, I don't know how old you are, man. You could be old, you could be young.
I am 36 years old.
In between space.
In between,
yeah. You're in the in between space. You could have said 46 and I would have believed you.
Yeah, I have a different appreciation for for that personal interaction. I have different appreciation for that, and I'm also very technological in so many ways. But I think that human interaction is something that is very valuable, and and for me at least. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So you say you are fighting for those who without a voice. So who are these people, and why are they without a voice?
Oh man, so this is story time, I guess, for now.
Dude.
Where I come from Texas. There's plenty of opportunity for people to get bullied in high school. I was on the football team for a while, and then I quit, and I went to the drama club and became the drama club president my senior year. So in an East Texas high school, it's like having a target on your back, right? Going from football to drama. And so I guess that shaped me a lot when I went to college and then law school. Is the goal was always to stand up for people who were being taken advantage of, who didn't have a voice. That's the idea. Not having a voice is somebody who doesn't know what they're supposed to do, but they know what's happening to them is wrong. For the first few years I was at a law school, I did criminal defense, which was right up my alley. You got the government is going to throw them in jail. They're not being treated fairly, whatever they're accused of. A lot of different factors there. I felt like that was where I needed to be. It was incredibly stressful because if you lose, your client goes to jail. So personal injury is a lot better for me because if I lose, we lose money. Nobody goes to jail. It's still stressful, but a little bit less.
I bet.
But I have seen, and here comes the politics, I have seen insurance companies shape the laws that take advantage of the individual people in this state and in this country my entire career. It's amazing what's happening right under our noses. There's a legislative session going on right now in Texas. There's lobbyists that are trying to push a bill that will completely ruin what I do for a living. It would mean that I'm out of a job if this bill gets passed. So there's stuff like that every 2 years when our legislative sessions are. There's something to make you gasp for a while as an attorney. But that's what's happening. And insurance companies are the best at this. I think they have the most money for this, because if you imagine if you can save a buck by spending 50 cents, you're going to do it every day. Yeah. And insurance companies do it in the millions. And they do it to be able to take advantage of us, the people that are actually paying the premiums. And how many times have you heard or said yourself, oh, I don't want to make a claim, they'll raise my rates, right? The fact that you're afraid of that means that the insurance companies are doing an amazing job at the propaganda. Why are you paying for insurance in the first place? If you're afraid of making a claim on the exact policy that you're paying for, which they said will protect you if anything happens to you. It's mind-boggling to me. And that's the people without a voice. If you get into a car wreck, if you slip and fall at a business that isn't safe, if we even have a couple of civil rights cases, if you're being taken advantage of somebody with power, then I'm the guy to call, because I like standing up to bullies and I kind of like to fight. The Marine Corps helped with that. I had that little bit of training to do that, but I like to fight. I like confrontation and I like to argue, which you saw firsthand, I think, Harut, in our MBA class.
Yes.
Tell them.
Absolutely. But this is actually a great information session. I didn't expect that this would turn into a great education for everybody. What you just said was, for me at least, it was educational, because you're right. Every time I'm like, raise my premium, whatever. I don't want to claim it. It's like you may. Yeah, kind of like you hit the target and with that statement. But thank you for explaining why we should really, put a claim in and not just go with what it's being said, or what's easier, I guess.
I keep thinking about it as a business model after going through business school. And I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but an insurance company takes in premiums and they just have to pay out less, right? I mean, that's the profit. that equals private. It's actually, it's the most basic business model I think that I can think of.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no product. You're not selling anything. It's
No.
just give me money, right? And you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then they pay adjusters to find excuses not to pay. And then they pay lobbyists to make the laws easy for them. And then they pay, all sorts of different things that they can do. All of the different commercials,
Yeah. All this, and we didn't even go into the healthcare portion of things yet. That's where.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Don't get me started. Or how much time do we got? Yeah. And I'm just talking about liability insurance, really. Homeowners insurance, car insurance, that sort of thing. Health insurance is way more complicated and varied than that. But yeah, it's incredible. And next to my house, there is a State Farm complex that they built a few years ago that is only State Farm. And it's at least 4 buildings, I believe. And they got restaurants and a nice little walking area. And then the Whole Foods went in across the street. Now they got apartments everywhere. They made their own town. This insurance company made an entire town in North Dallas. I think they're doing fine. I think they got plenty of that profit.
Sounds like it. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the old school and the modern technology and how easy or efficient that transition is being in your day-to-day business. Because some people come and prefer maybe to go the older ways, and others prefer to go about it with the more modern techniques that you offer. And do you see any challenges in applying both in your practice?
So we try to give everybody an option. What is the best way that you like to communicate with us? So far, nobody's chosen the mail, United States Postal Service. Nobody's chosen that so far. But we have options like email, text message, phone calls. Those are the things that we offer everybody, and we have a note in their case. They prefer a text. They prefer a phone call. I have found that 99% of people are able to do one of those 3 things: email, text, or phone call. There's maybe I can think of like one in the past few years that the whole text message wasn't a way to do it. Email, I forgot my email password. Phone calls, yeah, but the phone is sometimes turned off. They didn't pay their bill. So those we got to get creative. I usually get next friend, or next of kin to be able to call them, and then I'll use the postal service if I have to. I really hate mailing things, but if I have to mail something, I'll mail it. Oh, I faxed somebody before too. They can go down to a Kinko's or something, and they wait for the fax to come. I've done that before. Yeah. So old school. I mean, I don't know if you can get more old school than a fax machine.
I was just going to say, does fax still exist?
It does in my profession. It's really funny. Of course, I have eFax, so it's just emailed to me as an attachment. But yeah, it's for HIPAA. Some doctors are only comfortable with faxing records if that's the only way they'll do it, or mailing them. And we'll say, then fax it, please. Don't mail it to us, because once again, I hate the mail. But yeah, I think that's how we do it, so that everybody can be comfortable with the way that we communicate with them. And then, of course, you can make an appointment with me with a Calendly link. It's just a URL that we text them, click on this, make an appointment with me. 90% of everybody is fine with doing that. There's the 10% that don't know how to click on a link. And so they say, I want to do tomorrow at 10 a.m. And we go, okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Come in. We'll click on the link for you. Well, but yeah, most people are proficient enough.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think you're doing a great job in accommodating every demographic and every taste, I guess, right?
Well, that's what's great about the text and the emails and everything. Google Translate, you just copy and paste it into there, and you text it back to them. I wish my it's a program that I use. It's part of my case management software. I would think it would be so cool if they would just tie into Google Translate, and I could just choose whichever language I wanted to, and just directly type in there and have conversations. So to just get over the have an open tab where I copy and paste from Google Translate.
Mhm.
Because I'm not like you, Harut. I only speak one language, and I speak really bad Spanish. So I don't even say I speak two languages. I just
Well,
speak bad
you
Spanish.
speak a little Thai too, though.
we did learn a couple of Thai words, I think, when we were there, but yeah, they've long forgotten those.
Yeah.
The bot was their dollar, right? I remember bot.
Chokni, right? Chokni was cheers or something?
Chokni! That was the cheers. Chokni.
Yeah.
That's right. God. See, you got the language thing down. Like you just got a knack for it. I'll just use Google Translate. Because it's gonna be like Star Trek by the time you and I die. It'll just be like an ear thing, and we just say our language, and they hear it.
Exactly. They don't even hear what we're saying; they just hear what they want to hear.
It'll be implanted in our brains by the time. I mean, shoot, what do you think? That's 20 years away. Come on.
Well, I think they're doing it now. So for mass implementation, I don't know.
Cars are going to drive themselves, and we won't even talk to each other. We'll just stare at each other like this, and we'll just be thinking things at each other.
Oh my goodness! Fun times. Anyway,
you said we could get off script. You told me that was okay.
I didn't give you a script, but yeah, it's okay. Of course, you're making it sound like I'm telling you what to say and what not to say.
Yes. Man. Now, what do I say to this, Harut? Thank you for the opportunity.
No, this is a free platform, so you're all opinions are welcome, even
Off
yours,
book,
Zach.
Then. Even my opinion. What do you know?
Hey, give us a little insight if you can. Like, what's the percentage of car accident that will have minimum damages versus life-changing injuries?
Man, I don't know. I need to look up the car wrecks from last year. I think I have on my website. I have car wreck data from 2018 or 2017. I need to update that. But there's a lot in Texas. There's a lot of car wrecks. And that data is actually available. I did a project on it when we did quantitative analysis in our MBA program. I found all the data for all of the car wrecks in Texas that had a police report, because the police reports are public record. Mm-hmm. And so I could take that, and I took all of those. If there's a police report, then it's serious enough for the cops to come. It doesn't mean necessarily that there's an injury in that wreck, but that doesn't even get close to the number of wrecks that are actually happening, right? Because sometimes the police don't come out. Sometimes the police don't come out, and you're like, why didn't the cops come out to this? Must have been a busy night. But I did. I put them all together, put them all up on a map, and there's a lot. There is, I forget the number, but thousands and thousands and thousands of car
I'm
wrecks.
more concerned about maybe the rules and regulations that protect people who go through a life-changing experience from a car wreck, for example. Does the rule protect these people, or like how does the law work when someone gets in the car accident and his entire life has changed and he has to use a wheelchair, for example, for the rest of his or her life? Man.
So yeah. Okay, so here's a little lesson on insurance. There's two different types. It's third party and first party. Third party insurance is like the liability insurance that you have to get to be able to drive a car legally. In your state, in California, the minimum limits for that is $15,000. In Texas, the minimum limits is $30,000, and it ranges everywhere between that in different states. But that's the minimum, right? And what that is that the insurance that they say you have to buy so you can register your car. So if a cop pulls you over, he doesn't give you a ticket, that sort of thing. That means that if you hit and hurt someone, then the max your insurance company will pay out will be the $15,000, whatever you buy.
Yeah.
Now, $15,000 won't protect you personally if there's a horrible wreck and you cause a lot of damage to someone. But if you don't have any assets, if you don't have any money, then $15,000 is a lot of times the only thing that those people will get. And depending on your state, in Texas, you're pretty protected from lawsuits if somebody sues you personally. It's an old law, and it says something like you can have one house, one chicken, one goat, something like that. We can't garnish your wages. So what that means is that if somebody hits you and they have the minimum limits and they cause a lot more than that, then you can't get any compensation from them other than the minimum limits. And so you need to buy insurance called insured motorist protection, or UIM, or uninsured motorist protection. And it's optional. It is not required in my state, and I don't think it's required in California, but I don't know for sure. And that means if somebody hits me and they hurt me, then my insurance company will protect me over and above whatever their minimum limits are.
Mhm.
And really, you should max that out as much as possible. I have seen too many horror stories of people that have gotten hurt and physically disabled for the rest of their lives, and they get a check for $30,000, and that's it. And they're on their own. There's nothing that they can do. And so it's kind of a lottery when somebody hits you. You hope that they have good insurance, or you have good insurance. And so the only way to protect yourself is to get that insurance. And the laws in all of our states, I think, I don't know of a state that requires UIM, but I'm sure somebody would tell me. They only require you to protect other people, which is very interesting, right? That the state mandates that
that's
you
a liability
get something that protects other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. And I've seen people that have gotten their legs amputated. Don't drive a motorcycle, kids. And I've seen people that have broken their backs, and their hospital bill alone is $100,000, and there's a $30,000 policy. And I have to sit the family down and let them know, I'm so sorry, but this is all we got, and there's nothing else we can do. And those are tough conversations with people, and that's why every time somebody asks me, like you just did, I say UIM, buy UIM, and they, do everything you can to buy it, even if it's an extra $5 a month, buy it. It'll protect you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. I mean, great information for all our listeners and viewers. So my company, serves people with disabilities. I wanted to ask you if you ever came across as someone with a disability that was in a car wreck, or you helped them legally. Do you have that experience?
Yeah, plenty of times. I have a client. Well, I had a client who was deaf, and that posed a new problem that I hadn't ever had to deal with before. It was fine with text, right? We could text each other just fine. If he came to the office, I could yell at him, and he could understand what I was saying. If I mouth my words very well. I know the alphabet in sign language because I had a friend growing up that was deaf. And that's it. That's all I got. I about know as much sign language as I know Spanish. And so the technology that he showed me, which is amazing, is there's a whole company that has sign language interpreters ready to go, and they will do phone calls for you. And he just has to video call this sign language interpreter, and she will say what he's signing to me, and then she'll sign what I say back to him. And so sometimes I would get phone calls from him, and it would be somebody else. And she'd be like, hello, I'm going to translate for him. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then to do a deposition, we did a video deposition over Zoom because it was in the pandemic. And we had to hire a sign language interpreter for him, which, is just like what we're doing right now. She would sign, he would listen, he would sign, she would say whatever his answer was. Mm-hmm. You got to have a good internet connection for that, man. If you don't, it's not like dropping words, if you drop the sign, like he didn't get any of it, it was tough. But I've also seen that you can turn on closed captions on Zoom, which I haven't fiddled with it before, but that was something that I saw recently, and I was like, oh, I should have tried that with him. And I've also had a client who was autistic. Severely autistic, who's 30 years old, and he had never spoken a word in his entire life. And his mom and he were in a car wreck. He was a passenger, she was driving, and they were pretty hurt. It was interesting because he was hurt, but he couldn't communicate where he was hurt by talking to the doctors. And so it was a very interesting case because we had to figure out what was wrong with him, but we couldn't talk to him. So we had to observe how he would walk and sit up and stand and that sort of thing, x-rays, MRIs. And he had an iPad that he would use that had symbols on it for different things. So that's how he communicated. So if his mom said, where do you want to go to eat? He would pull up a picture of a bunch of different restaurants, and he would point to McDonald's or something like that. And, oh, okay, we'll go to McDonald's. And it was interesting to watch her interact with him because she was talking to him like you and I are talking right now, but he's just pointing at things, and she just knows. She can tell his mood. She can tell everything about him. And
That's
so my communication with him was kind of like that. It was just he's either through his mom or while he was pointing at the iPad or yeah, it was that was a very very cool case. I'd never worked with someone on the spectrum that was that autistic before.
yeah.
And then I've had more clients after that. I don't know if it's word of mouth or like, hey, Zach can knows how to deal or how to help. And so I've had clients with autism since then. And it's been very rewarding. Talk about, representing people without a voice, sometimes literally, right?
Yeah, literally, exactly. And it's amazing to see a business owner who is, doing, going above and beyond to be accessible to everybody, and that's part of what I preach on a daily basis with my practice and everything. Because disability is, if you look at it, it's just diversity. Diverse people, and then you have to adapt your environment to fit these people into it. Otherwise, there's because it's far more easy for us to adapt than to them. So I always say this. The people with disabilities shouldn't adapt to the existing environment. The existing environment should adapt to fit people with disabilities in there. So that's very
Right.
important. That's something I try to say every time. Now, this is going to be a great segue to my next question. One of your core values is communication. So why did you choose communication as a core value, and how do you ensure that great communication is maintained, not only by you, but by your employees as well?
Yeah, it's been a couple of times. It's been, put up or shut up, put your money where your mouth is. You said communication was your core value. Let's see if you can do it. I chose it, one, because I found it to be the most lacking quality in attorneys in my industry, is communication. It was as simple as updating your client on what's going on or explaining the complexities of a legal issue to someone without sounding like a jerk. Communication has grown from that to a lot of what you and I just talked about. To be able to communicate with somebody no matter what might be a better way of saying it. You said go above and beyond, but I say no. That's just we're living what we think is the most important. And if somebody says they don't speak the same language as me, Google Translate probably has it in there.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't speak at all, then we can figure something else out. And if somebody only does sign language, we can hire a sign language interpreter. We can go over text. All those things have just come naturally from that core value of communication. Mostly because the number one complaint that I hear and heard from people when they're talking about their lawyers that their communication was bad. They're bad at communicating. And I think it's a lot to do with my profession. It's a lot to do with the way we are taught in school, everything but how to deal with clients. And I guess it's just kind of the culture. It's kind of the world that I live in as lawyers. For the most part, not all of us, but lawyers are bad at communicating because I don't have a really why. I don't have a why. It's just kind of the culture.
Well, a lot of
I want to call us jerks.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, everybody needs great communication skills. I think that's that's a gospel skill to have. Unfortunately, communication a lot of times is not present in most conversations nowadays. And let's move to our next question. I often talk about inclusion and the importance of having an inclusive environment. So, how do you explain inclusion in your environment?
Well, I mean, I guess it's just kind of a continuation of what we've been talking about, how to be inclusive. I got people now that work here that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, and I've made them all learn how to use an iPad, no, or Mac, Apple products. Most people don't. So I'm not very inclusive when it comes to PCs and Macs. You have to have a Mac. I know that you're not a Mac guy. I'm just doing this to tease you. But no, inclusion means you gotta get out of your comfort zone and figure it out. It's the same thing as adaptability. It's the same thing as what you talked about when it comes to we adapt for people with disabilities. You're not going to be able to adapt if you don't go out there and put yourself out there, if you don't learn, if you don't meet people, if you don't try.
Yeah.
And that's where inclusion comes from. It comes from I have to step out of my office and talk to people. I can't just sit in here behind a computer screen all day. Even if it's something that I want to do, even if I don't want to talk to anybody, you got to do it. And going back to that adaptability thing that you said, I got to tell you, the people that have disabilities, I think that they get a bad rap from the rest of us because we somehow we don't want to step out of our comfort zone to include or to adapt, or maybe we're just afraid of doing the wrong thing, so we just kind of avoid. I see a lot of avoidance when it comes to people with either special needs or people that have disabilities. A lot of people just kind of like, ooh, I'm just going to do them a favor and ignore them, and it's like look the other way. I've never been that kind of guy who looks away. I've been the kind of guy that wants to learn and meet and ask questions, that sort of thing. And what I have found is it's way more embarrassing for the person with a disability for you to ignore them than it is for you to sit down with them and say, hey, what's going on? What's up? How can I help? That sort of thing. Just be treated like another decent, common decency seems to be a failing trait, not just in my profession, but in America in general. Just having some common decency.
Yeah, for sure. And going into this space of the community of people with disabilities, I had no exposure to them before, and fortunately I had some good mentors along the way that were people with disabilities that helped me with the terminology, with how to say things, how to approach a specific situation. So to your point, it's always nice to approach people, say, what's going on, just like you and I talk, it's like show the same approach to people with disabilities, and not and don't avoid them. It's very important. I like what you said a lot, and
it helps to be a friendly person. It kind of comes naturally to friendly people like me, outgoing people. For introverts, I don't think it comes as natural.
True, that is very true. And yes, you are very outgoing.
It's harder for some.
That is correct. That is correct. So, speaking of communication as your core value, I want to give our audience in closing here 3 tips on good communication, because to be able to get along well with others, to be able to work well with others, to be able to live well with others, you must be a good communicator. And to be a good communicator, number 1, you have to have something worth saying, like an interest, fascination, sensitivity, and knowledge. Number 2, you have to say it well. You must have a good delivery system for your substance and knowledge so it can benefit someone. And number 3, you have to be able to read your audience. You have to read what's going on between you and the people you're talking to. Should you say what you're saying softer, or should you say it a little stronger? Should you explain it more? Should you be more clear? A lot of the decision making that's going on during a conversation with someone depends on how well you can read, how well you can tell what's going on in the minds of those you are trying to reach. Do you agree with that, Zach?
Nope, I don't agree with any of it. No, I'm kidding. Yes, of course. Very well said, my friend. Very well said.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much, Zach. It was a pleasure having you as a guest on Mobility and Inclusion. I hope we'll have you again in the future.
I hope so too.
Sounds good, man.
Great to see you, man. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. Next time we're going to do this live, face to face.
Okay. Oh, face to face. Yes, I'm in.
All right, man. Have a good one.